All righty, let's get to the business. Let's finish this thing out, or not finish it out. Let's jump back into what was started. um, but with the wrong time. Okay, hold on. So I already told you the thing about sharing screen. I just need to make sure that I'm hiding your last name, which I am not. All right, let me get my timer on. Okay, that's good. All right, let's do it. Okay. Feels good to be back. It's been a weird few days for me where I haven't really, I don't think hold on, I want to check. Like, when is the last time I did a reading? It's gotta be like 6 days. Or is there one in between? I don't remember. Okay, your videos. So the last one was, no. Yeah, 6 days. It's 6 days. 6 days. And then you look before that, there's like a million from 2 weeks ago, like 2 and 3 weeks ago, like so many. Anyways, okay. Mm. Cool. So, okay, we talked about, a lot of the energies in this chart already. So, there's a lot that's already understood. However, with everything being flipped, the Sag rising, with the actual correct birth time, there's a lot that needs to be discussed, and changed, or not even changed, like completely redone. Well, starting off with like the parts of your chart, because you did watch the reading, um, that are correct. Let's just say, being in Aries, everything I said about that, and a Leo. I mean that should be obvious, but now we're looking at it, with the sun in the fifth, and then we're also having we're looking at as you having a grand trine, an elemental grand trine, not by degree. Well, actually, you do have a grand trine with Uranus, with the moon at the apex, sun, moon, Uranus, yeah. But elemental, if you add in south, the ascendant. So it's like you have the triple fire, which is amazing. Um, so hmm. So it gets even more fiery. I don't remember what it was like before, but I mean, I guess Cancer would have made the second house, and then so yeah, it would have been like 12, 11. So yeah, it would have been in 10th house. So yeah, it gets even more fiery because your sun and your moon are not only in fire signs, but they're in fire houses. So Aries sun, the fifth house, high creative purpose. All that Aries drive and fire is pushed into, it's very, very similar to the Leo. And then, the Leo moon is in the house of Sagittarius, the ninth house. So you see, and you're sending Sag. So it's like you're here, to really learn. Well, I wrote about this in a post recently about like how, the question is like, look how much fire you have. So it's like, is that karma? That's a question, right? Is it karma that you've accumulated through past lives of really being in that fire energy? Or is it something completely different, right? Hold on a second. Okay. Sorry, I'm just saying what you're saying. Okay, that is fine. Good. So yeah, just overall, that energy is just it's gonna make it so on a solar level, you're really trying to find the inner child, trying to find that authentic self-expression, which is completely linked to your moon sign of Leo, which is all about that, right? So, and Chiron talked about that, being in Taurus, 29 degrees, 6th house. So it's like South Node in Sag. So it's like, yeah, it goes. It's like you have mastered that energy. It seems like, and so it's like with your South Node in a fire sign of Sag, in the fire house of Aries, it's an indication that you're almost like meant to be like a shining example to others of what fire is all about. You know what I mean? And I wrote about this in my post. It was like something about like most important, like the karmic lesson of each sun sign. So, it's my belief that in some cases you have a sun sign, completely based on your karma, like in your case. And other times it's like you have aspects of your chart that are more based on areas where you need to improve. But this chart clearly indicates to the South Node that there's a lot been there, done that. Which also makes me think that with the North Node in Gemini, that you're trying to get past this past life tendency to be so fiery, so independent, so creative, and you're trying to learn compromise. I have my North Node in the 7th house too. So in the fact that, in any system it's in the 7th house, right? You have Juno there too. It would make me think that marriage slash very important romantic relationships are very key to you, because in past lives you may have not emphasized those enough because maybe we were like, so deep into what you were doing, you know what I mean? Like so deep into what you're doing that you kind of pushed away the need to be in relationships and to allow others, your space and time, I guess. So that's important. And 1 second, I need to look at something. Hold on. Okay, I just had to I totally forgot. Very important football matches on. Don't worry, I'm not watching it. I just wanted to have it on in the background, and I needed to make sure that my headphones are not letting any of the sound, even though it's on like the lowest volume. Need to follow my Paris team and just see what's going on with them. So yeah, but basically, actually, I want to just mute it. It's kind of annoying. Basically, I think that in this life, you still have those energies because it's like kind of challenging you. It's like, okay, you're still this person that can relate so much to all three fire archetypes. Leo Moon, which we discussed previously, the Aries Sun. But now the Sag Rising, it makes someone, the chart ruled by Jupiter, makes someone very adventurous, right? To the point to where life is like this big sequence of adventures, right? And you come in this life with lots of you're very philosophical with your moon in ninth house, right? Emotional need to learn more, to gain through wisdom, to travel, to experience life through different cultural perspectives and different philosophical perspectives. And when it comes to the sun the fifth, it's like, you're meant to really shine in areas that are related to creating, which is like very linked to your past lives, right? Creating and inner child and all the Leo stuff. So it's completely connected to your moon. You have the sun trine moon, as we talked about. And I like Jupiter in your second house because it's like in Capricorn, it's this very, very boss energy. So I cannot imagine you having trouble in career or anything related to money or something like that. But then Neptune there can kind of create some fogginess around that, and that all goes back to the Taurus Chiron around, like, wounds around values, wounds around potentially the physical body, yeah, things of that nature. But really, like, there's a need to not overemphasize your external life too much, right? And to really focus on the North Node and about like how can I balance, or how can you balance being this person where there's a lot been there, done that, with passion and all the fire element of just getting up and going, and wanting to experience everything in life. But what happens when you have an excess of that is that sometimes you can see relationships as kind of a detriment to you, and something that holds you back. And so it's really, really key to find the right ones, and that's why we look at Gemini. And I think of that, and we already talked about like kind of the South Node, North Node signs, but and how that's about being able to have to have relationships that are really based on communication, right? On really learning to communicate, like, when it comes to like the philosophy and the higher realms of communication, you got that. But like the simple communications, and yeah. So then yeah, and then even Venus in Aries, we talked about that. But playing out in the fifth house is a lot different. It's like major creativity. There's such great energy for children. You're I don't know if you have children, but I mean that's an area of life that could be very, very important. And the seventh house, yeah, it's relationship based, like, but it's also about partnerships, like business partnerships. It's about, I think, BFFs, like just really, really close relationships. And with that unaspected sun, I know, I think I remember. 1 second. And there was a square to Jupiter, but yeah. I mean, that just pushes it further. So there can be this real, just like boom, just like it's just very strong personality that just goes above and beyond. So there's definitely a need to kind of slow down in the sense of like, okay, like, what else is the chart asking? Well, we see Pluto in the 12th. That's like in the Mars and Saturn, all three of them in the 12th. So, it's obviously very karmic, and I think that it's in Scorpio too. So I see conjunct Venus, so that would speak of usually a very nice childhood, although it's in Aries, but still. There's the energy of Pluto in the 12th, which is all about really finding this. It's really about kind of jumping off the material realm into the spiritual. And Mars, obviously in Scorpio, in the 12th is just it's a very strong energy. And what aspects does it have? Opposite Chiron. So it's like a real need to balance out many things, not just the compromise in relationships part, but also the whole part about needing to dive into service, needing to dive into what you're doing for the collective, and examination of your own depths and speaking of them, right? And yeah, I talked about the moon square Saturn and how that can be difficult because it can create issues. Any moon Saturn aspect can really make it difficult emotionally, especially for the first 30 years, and cause issues with the mother. The trine with the sun and the moon indicates typically a positive energy between the two parents, or at least a similar worldview, I guess you could say. But yeah, that 12th house is massive. Yeah, I always think of Pluto in the 12th as like the need to, it's like jumping off the Saturnian kind of more materialistic realm of existence into the 12th house is Neptune, like that endless sea of Neptune, and that oneness. And Saturn there can be very difficult because it can create all types of sometimes feeling like there's hidden forces against you. So the best way to handle that is to take a more serious approach into spirituality, into the occult, into the esoteric, and really just what's the word I'm looking for? Probing deep within yourself. So you could be some kind of channeler or something like that, where you have, because fire is giving one the ability to kind of have these views of the future, these little impulses, especially with Uranus so close to the ascendant and conjunct the south node. I think that speaks to someone who definitely always, like I was saying before, it kind of furthers what I was saying. I don't want to say put themselves first. I mean, yeah, definitely, but someone who's always willing to be different. 1 second. Little watcher. Yeah, so someone who's always willing to be different, and who also always needed a lot of freedom to create and to kind of like you've brought in this gift of being able to be your own person and to be a very like individualized human, right? A human who, or a soul, I guess, that has always beat to the beat of their own drum. Which is interesting with what I was saying about the Pluto, because I think that it's been done in certain areas of life, in past lives. Maybe you're just like a creative genius who's like, okay, well, I'm not gonna, waste time in relationships when I have this extremely important work. And it doesn't make it easier to have all this fire because it's like they're so prominent, and it's gonna really kind of push you more towards the South Node, which South Node is not a bad thing. Remember that the South Node is not a bad thing, Jeff Higgs. It's about how can you use the South Node to get to the North Node, basically. And going from Sag to Gemini, it's like really, it's like going from, and I spoke about this before, about like looking at your belief systems, looking at how you see the world, and being willing to hear out like the more mundane stuff that people might talk about, the stuff that might it's like the journalist energy, right? The journalist who goes and speaks to people all different walks of life, but like doesn't like downplay someone or a system of thought. Just very, very curious. So it's like the higher mind is very in place. And I don't want to say that Gemini is the lower mind, because it's not, but it's like if Sagittarius is like the grand philosophies that are created, Gemini is the like when a journalist writes an article, right? It's like they can't just start with the philosophies. They have to do the groundwork. If you a research project, you have to go and look and ask the people, get the data kind of. So it's like collecting data, and reevaluating the reevaluating everything. And of course, yes, South Node is conjunct Antares, which I don't look at like when the nodes are conjunct fixed stars, because they're not planetary points. But like even with that said, having Aldebaran on the North Node and Antares on the South Node, I mean, that one's kind of up for debate, right? Because it could kind of lend more credence to what I've been talking about, which is just this real power that you've come in this life with. So let's see. Yeah, back to like the 12th house, having Mars there can be very difficult because it can make someone self-sabotage in different areas of life, especially early on. But it's very, very psychic, and it's like the spiritual warrior energy when it's in Scorpio. But like sometimes in the 12th, it can kind of erode, and it is close to the ascendant, but like still, it can sometimes erode one's view of their own self-power. And not self-power in the physical sense, self-power like in the esoteric kind of emotional, spiritual sense of like being able to tap in different energies and to different people, and you know, with the opposite to Chiron, there could be some pain related to that, and mistrust in the intuition, because Mars is retrograde, right? So that speaks to the past life story of, you know, Mars being action. When it's retrograde, it's like, okay, did you overact or underact? Were you overly assertive or were you underly assertive? And of course, with all the fire in South Node in Sag, it's like probably overly assertive. So that's why it's in the 12th. It's like, it's really asking you to go deep within, you know, 8th and 12th are very related to, like 12th, you know, 8th is more going deep within your own psyche, while the 12th, you could say, is going deeper into like the psyche of all humanity, but they relate to each other, right? Because you learn either way about your own depths. But yeah, having, you know, I imagine this chart being someone, you know, second house Jupiter is like the financial guardian angel. In Capricorn, it's even more boss energy. So it's like, I would imagine that when I see charts like this, I always think like, okay, like they probably have learned a lot of the karmic lessons around money. And you know, it's really about looking at your belief systems and you know, what do you like what that you believe is like something that you see as being like undebatable, you know, like it's like you're like where it's like you're so sure of that truth that there's like an unwillingness to kind of have debate or have hear different perspectives. And that goes back to lacking air, which I spoke about, you know, which, you know, let's see, the air houses 3. So yeah, and it doesn't make it easier that the air houses are completely empty, right? Because your north node's in air. So yeah, it really is about communication and hearing other people out, gaining different perspectives, being open to different perspectives, being able to compartmentalize, you know, hear someone and basically just like take what you want from them. Like, not like every human who you might see as a teacher or, you know, even systems of belief or whatever it is, right? There might be some stuff that's true, some stuff that's not. And it's really about looking at that. But like, okay, so now Saturn, right? Saturn, so Pluto in the 12th is really about like this big need to feel this oneness, not just understand it, but to really feel this spiritual oneness. And then, you know, Chiron is close to the descendant. It's in the 6th, but it is close to the descendant. So it's like you could be a healer, you could be someone who works with clients in some type of way, and you know, that could even be the source of the North Node Gemini, is like the need to work with everyday people, everyday people with everyday problems. And but even like having like a Venus ruled midheaven, you know, in Libra with Venus in the 5th, it's like there will be a level of creativity and of that kind of innate artistic ability that will go into the things in 0 degrees. So it's kind of like stepping into like a new type of outer external life kind of being, you know, which is very interesting. And the fact that it's in the 11th is making me think that, like, you know, working with other people and and whatnot is very important as well. Which can be difficult, when you have a lot of fire. It can be difficult to, like, it's so entrepreneurial, so, like, very fiery people. They want to do things their way, right? So it can be difficult to, like, and 11th house is also very humanitarian. It's like for the people. So there can definitely be something, related from between the MC and the North Node around working with other people and doing things that maybe get you out of your comfort zone. And ultimately, like, if your career is related to helping others, or what you do in your daily life, right? Chiron 6th house, 6th house is daily life. That will help out all this stuff over here, because like having the three malefics in one house is a lot, all retrograde. So Pluto there, and especially Saturn there, can create like lots of like phobias and like kind of unconscious fears, like that you don't understand about, like the hidden realms and about things that you cannot see. And yeah, it's difficult, so with the Saturn 12th house people, I always say, like, you have to confront whatever it is. There can be hidden enemies, and finding that Mars, right? Because like the Mars retrograde will push that energy more within. Even in a strong Mars sign like Scorpio, it can make one, and even having so much fire, it can make one kind of have double takes around their actions, which is what it's asking you to do. It's asking you to think, like, it's giving, because like the fire is impulsive, so it's like there are like impulsive energies, but then it's like trying to ask you, okay, like how can you still have these energies, which is very advanced karmically, right? To still have all these fire energies, but then at the same time, figure out ways to sort of break free of different impulses. Let me see. And we talked about Mercury opposites Pluto. So yeah, the Mercury in Taurus. Also Pluto, we talked about that, about just a lot of like difficult conversations that can come from your views. Mercury is yeah, it's trining Neptune. Okay, so it is nice Mercury in Taurus, logical, some Earth in your chart also. Yeah, having opposite Pluto can create lots of intensity within the mind, can lead to upsets and just darkness that can come out within your communications, but also within your own internal thought processes and self-talk, which Mars retrograde also will push. So yeah, it's really, like, I think that 12th house is key to you. It's key with that to be able to know that alone time, time spent meditating or whatever it is, contemplating, just going deep into that well of internal being, and finding optimism, right? Because you have Venus on the IC, which typically gives one the ability to see the beauty and to have this like internally, like, overall positive view of everything, right? But then when we have Neptune the second, it's like, all right, well, there can be some real fogginess around how one sees themselves. So that's where the Taurus comes in, where it's like, okay, how can you find, I think I spoke about this before, like a set of values that you subscribe to, that you basically make every decision based off of. So yeah, giving thought to that is very important. Very, very important indeed. Yes, it's interesting. Sag rising, Jupiter in the second. So how does this affect everything? This change of ascendants and of the whole houses of everything affect relationships? Well, I explained the Venus in Aries. The Mars in Scorpio, it's like the ultimate Scorpio placement, but still it's like, a need to, in partnerships, to have someone who's encouraging this deeper dive into the self, right? Because it can be very easy to kind of go for the whole power couple thing, or just be very, very tied to your work, to your objectives. But remember, like, there's so much been there, done that. So I think, like, you're meant to do all the things that you're most likely already doing, but on another level, it's like there has to be like a emphasis on relationships and on learning to compromise, learning to compromise and learning to give more chances, right? Give more time to partners and hear them out, because fire, like I said, fire, it can be very impulsive, and it does not like to feel limited, to have all this fire. It does not like to feel limited. So when I see someone who has a lot of one element, relationship astrology is very difficult. But a lot of times I think, and what I've observed is that oftentimes, like, people who have that will be better with people who kind of have very different energies, right? So you have very masculine energies in your chart, but Earth, Taurus, Capricorn, Virgo, although Capricorn is quite masculine, it's a sign, and water, Scorpio, Pisces, Cancer, these energies can really help you. And we look at your vertex in Cancer in the 8th, that speaks further to that, and to that need to, obviously have relationships that are based, that don't hold you back from this creative mission, right? But also that don't hold you back from the spiritual missions. It's like, how do you find that? Let's see. Mm-hmm. Yeah, vertex 8th house. There's lots of fate around kind of these kind of intense situations that might appear within relationships that will, in Cancer, take you down to your core emotions. It's about feeling, and with the 12th house energy there, right, with especially with Mars, there can definitely be like it could be someone who has all these occult esoteric abilities, but almost hides them, or doesn't want to fully go into them, right? Um, and it can also feel, with all those planets there, like the universe is like against you in some ways when you go in certain directions, right? So I think when I see a lot in the 12th, I always say, living a life of service is extremely important. Living a life of giving back, right? Of selflessness. And here it is, channeling all that creative energy into something that can help humanity. And the part of fortune, conjunct the ninth house Leo moon, because the moon in Leo, we talked about that. But like, in relationships, it can be a bit needy. It can require lots of attention. It's very sensitive. And with the square Saturn, it could have made it difficult, more likely before the Saturn return, to have vulnerability and really express the emotional parts of you, the more intuitive, more deeper parts of you. It could be could have been more difficult to truly express those. So yeah, like learning lessons around vulnerability, and then with the Mars in the 12th, I've observed that a lot, being people who do self-sabotage. And with all that fire, I wonder like if that might play out in relationships where you say or do something and then regret it after. It's interesting because Saturn is almost a midpoint between Pluto and Mars. So a lot of the energy gets channeled into the Saturn. I'll show my face for a little bit. Or has it been showing the whole time? It totally has. I had no idea. I thought it was showing the chart. Well, whatever. So let's answer everything. Yeah. So with Saturn in the 12th, also it's like, so yeah, it can make people really fear the hidden. So maybe like the whole spiritual awakening or whatever, like I assume people who come to me for readings have had some level of spiritual awakening. I can never tell, and being a Mars and Scorpio, I don't care what, if it's in retrograde, it's in the house of Pisces, like it's very, very strong. And because it's retrograde, it's more internal. So it's like it's forced you to kind of karmically look at like, how do I want to assert myself? How do I want to use my action? And you get past like around the Saturn turn, which you're past now, and you see, okay, well, and you can imagine past lives, because the South node, like we tend to like, that's kind of our default mode, right? My cat's begging for me to let her in. So yeah, it's like kind of like trying to see like when are you, Felix, come on, when are you in the South node, when are you in the North node? I'd say you're it's very tricky, as I said. It's very tricky because you have so much fire. So it's like to deny that is like denying like so much of you. So it's really just about balance, right? And you do have Mercury in Taurus. Okay, that's an earth sign, but come on, it's Mercury. It's definitely like the least important of the personal planets of course, it will add balance to your thought process, and it is in the 6th house, which is very good, because I was going to get to that subject next about routine and balance, and how massive of a role that's playing in your life. Chiron there too, like just having your life in order, whether it's the routine at the gym, or especially with all that fire, that probably like you need a ton of that. Because people who have lots of fire, like they can, like I've noticed it, like if I stop it, like they can like literally like I've seen lots of people, lots of fire, like smoke becomes stoners, unless they have that physical release. So yeah, really diving in. I think your chart, a big part of it, like, is diving into the elements that you're missing, which are, pretty much, I mean, yeah, you have water, but it's in the 12th. The 12th is hidden. So it's like uncovering the water, right? Uncovering that intuitive, spiritual, empathetic, compassionate side of you, which is best done through service, or just getting deeper and deeper into, your own psychology, and connecting to like the collective unconscious, and like your own spirituality, whatever that path looks like for you. But then, with Earth, even though you have Mercury there, it's like, yeah, it's just about consistency and finding that, right? And learn, and with that consistency, being able to, I guess you could say, hold back some of the fire impulses that may hinder in some way. But like overall, that's kind of like those are kind of like the challenges. Like I don't like, obviously the moon in Saturn, like that's a big challenge, but you would have already most likely gone past that. And then when you get past that, it can create like someone who's very responsible, and who is like on an emotional level, mature and responsible, and it can be a good thing, and who's able to open up. But that's the thing. That's kind of what I see, is like the need to open up more, with the air, to see different people's perspectives, but all that while still understanding that, like it's almost like when I see a chart like this, I almost think like in some ways it's like a redo of like certain aspects of your past lives, of whatever past life or lives you're dealing with in this karma, this lifetime. And it's hard to put into words. It's hard to put into words. Yeah, so really, like, we talked about like the missing elements with the air, breath work is just like, it's so good for people who miss air. Like I've heard from so many people and clients and people I know who don't have air, who've done that breathing exercises, anything to do with air, getting out hiking, getting out in nature, massive. And yeah, maybe a big part of this lifetime is learning to tame some impulses that have hindered you with the retrograde Mars in past lives. How close is that? No, it's not close enough. And Black and Lilith, 4th house. There can be some in Pisces, definitely stuff around, around spirituality. That's some witch energy, but at the same time, people who have that, I always think like 4th house. Okay, it's like I have mine the 3rd/4th, depending on the system. It's like, watch out, kind of like if you have like a lot of money, for example, and you have a nice house, like watch out who you show your private life to, like on social media and stuff like that. But also, like, there's a big need to like protect yourself spiritually, to learn, whether it's like through Kundalini yoga or whatever it may be, to protect yourself spiritually. So yeah, the more you compromise in relationships, the more that you live your life in a service-oriented manner, while also using all of that fire, super like expansive, just such great leadership, that energy that's so good for all those things, leadership, being able to just start and do things, just start and go, using that for the good of humanity, is massive. Finding, a routine that's consistent, that sets you up for stability. We all have different things that work for us. For me, it's running. Yeah, just the balance between kind of the masculine and the feminine is another huge theme. It's a huge theme, because the feminine parts could be a little bit locked up in that 12th. So it's only through, it can be very tricky. I'll be right back. You can still hear me. It can be very tricky for someone with a chart like yours. Like, there's a trap where it's like, like your chart, it's so easy. I don't want to say to slip into the north south node, because I really try not to demonize or add negativity to the south node. 1 second. Cleaning up my cup. But it can be really, really easy to slip back into that. And I'm not saying it doesn't seem like it's like major changes that are needed. That's not what I'm getting. I'm not getting, and this is a fucking complicated chart. It's always these charts. It's always these charts that get you. Or not get you, but that like, I'm like these. I don't even know. It's like the charts that like have so much of one thing, and then the north node is like completely just like on its own island. There's no, like, this would be so much easier, and it's in it's in an air house and an air sign, and you have no air in your chart. Like my chart, for example, I have my north node also in Aquarius, so air sign, 7th house, Libra house, air house. However, I have Venus and Mars in Aquarius, and Venus is right on my north node. So it's like, it's very easy for me to tap into that, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because I have those energies, right? Like Mars and Venus in Aquarius. So you don't have that. So it's like, you have to like look outside of yourself, which is the 7th house. Let me present again. So 7th house, you have to look outside of yourself to others to find that. Which may have not been something easy for you, and which still may not be. There could be issues with trusting others and the like, but that's what has to be done. Learning to forge like very, very authentic and peaceful, 11th house ruled by Libra, Venus, relationships or friendships, and being parts of groups that help you move to a new level. So yeah, the trick and the trap is like, in this world, like, with so much fire, like, we live in a society where having a chart like yours can really lead to like very, very good, almost not easy, but just like feedback, right? As opposed to like having tons of water, can be difficult for many. The fire is not like that, right? It's not like that. So you might be, getting lots of I guess you could say, unconscious rewards, lots of positive feedback around just who you are in general, right? Which can be confusing because then you're like, I'm doing all these things right, but then there's a part of you that's like, but still something feels like it needs to be rearranged. And yeah, so that's kind of the difficulty of it, is like how to find the air, how to find it, how to. So yeah, air is, very 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 friendly, very very good at seeing the two sides of each story, very good at very good at being diplomatic and and yeah, it's like the journalist energy, right? I was talking about before. So all in all, I think that the big thing for you is related to to that, but also, I don't think you had a follow up, but a follow up would be very interesting because this is a very confusing chart. I mean, it's just there's so much going on. But yeah, it's like how to not lose sight. Like I'm putting myself in your shoes. I'm like, all right, this is my chart, right? I'm like thinking, I'm like, okay, like I have all this fire energy, right? I have all this fire energy, but then I'm being pushed in a way that's kind of like very very different, you know. I maybe want to start all these new things, new projects, and be someone who's like a entrepreneur, which isn't a bad thing. So the shift, and I'm thinking out loud. I'm trying to figure this out loud. So sometimes it takes a while, right? Like, and things will click. Some things will not click, right? But I do believe that, like, it's not necessarily about changing those parts of you, but as much as it is, um, tying a few loose knots around relationships, but then like where like really figure, like, okay, here it is. It's like with the Mars retrograde, it's like obviously also like deepening your spirituality, but and then through that, like reevaluating everything and figuring out where you want to put that raw fire energy. Because what I'm getting, okay, this is what I'm getting, is that in past lives, that energy was not directed. It wasn't necessarily directed in a bad. It wasn't directed in a bad place. Let me make that clear. But there is a lot of been there, done that around this energy. Does that make sense? It's like imagine like you've been like this creative genius in so many different lifetimes. Um, so at a certain point, it's like, okay, now it's time for something new. And yeah, yeah. So yeah, really redirecting energy, and then just with the black and Lilith, like in Pisces, I just always think of that one as like someone who can which doesn't relate to anything in your chart at all, because Neptune is just, it's square Venus. So I talked about that last time, about how there can be some kind of misunderstandings in relationships. And it speaks more to the potential difficulty of seeing yourself objectively. But yeah, with the Black Moon Lilith there in the fourth, it's I just think it's probably related to the family of origin, and yeah, a need to kind of mend things within that structure, if that makes sense. What else? Let's see over here. Interesting. And Neptune also squares the midheaven, so there can be some confusion around, what am I supposed to be doing? Those types of questions, right? What am I supposed to be doing? Is what I'm doing correct? Like in terms of career / big picture. So not super easy in that sense, but when you have so much fire, it's you got this. It's it truly is it truly gives you this power to really just be all right, I'm going to take things in this direction, something, potentially a completely different direction than what you're accustomed to. One quick second. Okay. What else? Ancestral stuff also. I may have said this last time, but the whole thing about how so many of my clients, I see it in different areas of their chart. Sometimes it's more intuitive, but I feel like so many of the people who come to me, they're the chosen ones, within their families. They're the ones who are meant to break some type of cycle. So when I see the Black Moon Lilith there, I think to myself, okay, maybe there's some pattern that's existed for so many generations. And this individual is the one who's meant to really break it, who's meant to break it, and who's meant to push things into a new direction for future generations. And I get that sense. But I really would need to talk further with you. I hope you book a follow-up, and I'll give you a good price. Just message me if you're interested. A reduced price. Yeah, wow. Just Uranus conjunct South Node. Because Uranus also karmic astrology can be looked at as a trauma point. So, there could be energy of you being a very strong personality that was ostracized in past lives, right? So yeah, a lot there. Here's something goofy. Let's see something. Yeah, so the Mars, it's like yeah, I told you, like emotional outbursts can come out of the blue. And when it mixes with being in Aries with, your big three all on fire, it's like you see, how like Scorpio eighth house, there's a massive need to dive deep within yourself, that whole death, rebirth, transformation, allowing parts of yourself that are no longer needed to die in order for you to truly become a better version of yourself. But like what I always, as I said before, and I'll repeat, service, 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 service. If that can be done through your career, just like triple. If I had three hands, it'd be triple thumbs up. If you can find like in career slash like just your everyday life, or your everyday big picture life. Dharma is a better word. Okay, I talked about Mars and Scorpio already. Like, don't fuck with Mars and Scorpio. They are the most vengeful. They can be very vengeful opponents. So that's another thing. How do you channel that energy into something positive? Well, it's like, okay, so someone who looks out for those without a voice, can be like a very good start. Yeah, really like just diving deep into the esoteric, deep into the occult, deep into spirituality, deep into yourself, deep into the collective unconscious, deep into different people and helping different people. I think that's ultimately, like, I'm getting more like yeah, like the whole romantic relationship stuff is definitely prevalent and something, but then I'm also like thinking, okay, well, what if it's just completely related to being someone that works with people, and that, I don't know if it's a clinical setting, or who works with people on healing their own traumas and healing and uses that fire, because it's so encouraging. Someone with so much fire, it's so encouraging and it's so passionate. It can give so much to others. So yeah, that's like another big point: redirecting of the fire energy. Um, what else? What else? And yeah, of course, Juno already said, like, in the seventh house is great. It's just like, being able to see, the beauty in the partner, and to really want marriage, to really want a deep commitment. Um, like having that as a big goal. But then in Gemini, it's like there's a huge need to have that variety and that intellectual stimulation within that, with the moon in Leo also speaks to needing, in ninth house, needing adventure and needing fun, and being in touch with the inner child. So yeah, I think this is a good. I already went over the stars last time, so none of that stuff changes. If there are any big ones I saw, I mean, I'm looking. I'm not seeing anything pop up besides like the nose of the royals. Just do this anyways. Yeah, and then last thing I'll say is part of fortune, being so close to your moon, it's basically just like an indication that being like the highest energy of Leo moon, which is like the authentic self-expression, as I've talked about before, and not doing things, just for the fame and the views and this and that, but really for like understanding yourself better and being passionate, being brave, being a warrior, the physical and the spiritual realm with the Mars and Scorpio. That's like really like where you find the most flow and really also living a life of adventure. So it's not like changing up who you are. It's really just redirecting the energy. That's kind of what I sense. And yeah, Pluto 12th. I mean, also like I'll say there's just it gives like a massive need to explore the unconscious realms, right? And it can even become like an obsession with like trying to like once you get past the Saturn fear um of exploring, the unconscious of the self and the collective. Um yeah, there can also be this whole thing of finding yourself like at the center of different crises, um with the Mars there too, especially. And yeah, it's about really looking at your own involvement within that. Um which goes back to the Black Moon Lilith and Pisces, which can be escapist, but also it can, any Black Moon with the water sign can be like repressive in a way, right? It can be repressive in a way, emotionally repressive, um, and also it can make someone who doesn't necessarily who might use like that Mars and Scorpio like kind of esoteric like spiritual intelligence like it can make someone like emotionally manipulative and play like self victimize and stuff like that. But also, with so much fire, it could show up as like not having enough empathy. So it show up in lots of different ways. So, anyways, that's it. I don't know how many. Oh, okay, 111. So 111 for a second. Not a redo, but obviously I didn't go as far into the things I went into super detail about that clearly got the channel or the channel on in the first reading. Everything about this and that sign, this fixed star, all that was correct. Just yeah, just in all the aspects, all that was correct. It was just really the houses and the ascendant and midheaven and all this and all that. So, anyways, thank you, and let me know if you want to do a follow up. I would highly suggest it with this complicated chart and to see how this matches up with your lived experience. And besides that, I wish you a good day /night/morning. All right, ciao.